ethical leadership can take different forms. Ethical leadership can be defined differently. And if you look at the research, it is defined: responsible leadership, ethical leadership, transformational leadership. These are all components of ethical leadership, but there are some, I think, underpinnings of that. And it's sort of what we've talked about for me. The first is a willingness to engage with the broader stakeholder community and to understand and listen to their needs. And not just listen to it, but actually figure out how that impacts your business and how it impacts you as a person, but more importantly, how does that work with the business? And then do something about that. To me, that's number one, is this understanding of the broader stakeholder community. The second is being authentic. And that's a loaded word, I think, nowadays, but for me, authentic is being self-reflective, being self-aware, being transparent in how you interact with that broader stakeholder community, in an honest, straightforward answer. To me, that's being, and I think in today's environment, in today's world, inauthentic leadership, inauthentic people become pretty transparent, I think, after a while. The other thing is really what we talked about: empathy, humility, and compassion, I think, are all components of being an ethical leader. I've studied a lot around transformational leadership, and versus, say, transactional leadership, which is really that command and control. Do it my way. I don't need to have your feedback. Some of the components of transformational leadership that I think really go to ethical leadership is this idea of engaging in a dialogue with your associates, with your employees, encouraging feedback and listening to that feedback, willing to communicate with your employee base in, again, a transparent way, and then also being self-aware yourself, that how am I coming across? Am I being willing to do that? We at Magnetrol now, with our leadership team, we have a monthly sit-down where we go through, the obvious stuff. How's your business? What have you been doing well? We've shifted that more to a positive discussion, which includes, what can I do for you? What do you need from me as the president to help you achieve your goals? What development opportunities are you looking to do? That, to me, is part of ethical leadership, to say, I'm not here just to tell you what to do. I want to hear what you need and then address it. And we've tried to start rolling that down throughout our management ranks to that. And then I think the final thing is really just, it's sort of symbolism too, right? Part of ethical leadership is I'm not a big fan of this expression because I think it gets overused, but walking the talk. It's one thing to say we're going to be transparent. It's one thing to say we're going to understand your needs. But if I'm doing things that are counter to that, if I have management that's doing things that are counter to that, to me, that sort of gets rid of the ethical component of that. You're sending a mixed message. The final thing I would say, because I've studied this a lot, is what I'll call the opposite of ethical leadership, and that's leaders who just don't want to be engaged. That leaders that turn away from their responsibility and just say, everybody else handle it. I think that is the purest form of unethical leadership for me, is to just walk away. And if you have that in an organization, you've got to take care of that. Leaders have got to be involved. It's hard work. I always tell people, leadership is hard. Leadership requires work because you have got to be engaged with your employees. It goes back to that process. And for me, it's unethical if you refuse to take on that work, to take on that challenge, and to actually have dialogue with folks, because it can get messy. It can get hard when your employees are asking for stuff that you can't do. It's easy just to say, well, we can't do that, so just go back to work, rather than saying, well, let's talk it through. Now, we may not get together on this result, but it takes work to actually sit there and lead and listen.